Welcome back to Primitive Organic Garden and Guitar. Today I feel a little bit negligent that I haven't filmed a video of the garden in, I don't know, a couple weeks. There's been a lot going on. It's also just been unbelievably hot. Every single day for the last week or so, the heat index has been over 100. That really wouldn't be so bad if it were just a few hours a day. But I got up this morning at 4:30, was hoping to go for a run, do some work out in the garden before the sun came up, and the heat index was 91 degrees at 4:30 in the morning. So part of the reason I'm just not out here as much is because of the heat. Because I'm not out here as much, the garden has kind of turned into a huge mess, which it does almost every summer. Unfortunately, it doesn't look very pretty, but this year I've tried to plant more flowers so that it looks less messy. I've also been losing a ton of food to rabbits and squirrels and rodents. I came out here the other day and I picked 8 bell peppers off this one plant. Every one of them had like a bird hole in it. It had to be birds because some of the peppers were way up off the ground. And you know, it'd be all right if the birds and squirrels just ate one pepper here and there, but they don't. They bite into 10 different peppers and then each one of them rots. But I think as these plants get taller and taller, they'll be less susceptible to things like rodents. I've also been seeing some cats hanging out around here, which is nice. I'm pretty stunned at how these bell peppers are actually managing to hang in there with all this competition from the flowers, because I mean, these flowers are clearly the dominant species here now. Believe it or not, this was a neat little tidy raised bed full of cabbages all winter, and now it's just kind of turned into this massive flower patch that's flopping into the front yard. But yeah, I'm hoping to get quite a few more bell peppers out of here. Some of them are starting to, you know, get some rot spots on them from probably bacteria with all the high temperatures. This one looks like it needs to be pulled. It's got some weird disease, need to just cull it. There's also some cilantro in here. It's about the only place I can grow cilantro right now because it's in almost complete shade behind all these flowers. But enough looking at bell peppers and me complaining about bell peppers getting eaten. Let's actually go look at the real garden in the back. By the way, these are all burgundy bell peppers that I've been breeding, but the problem is they get eaten by things before they go to seed, before they can, you know, become ripe. Anyway, I said go to seed, but before the seeds can become viable. Anyway, let's go take a look at the backyard. Oh, I stuck a tomato in here the other day. This was potatoes and carrots all spring, and I guess it's gonna be, no, it was just carrots. It was just carrots. I didn't have potatoes in here because I wouldn't have stuck a tomato in there if I had. I got all these shishito peppers that I'm planning on transplanting today. I soaked these with water about 2 hours ago, but being out here in these black trays, they're already getting dry. So yeah, I got all these shishito peppers I need to transplant today. I got also all these tomatoes I need to transplant today. This is a volunteer bottle gourd from last year. I'm gonna see if I can get it to climb. It just popped out of nowhere the last couple days. The shishitos are still hanging on in the heat, but they've definitely slowed down their fruit production. In the spring, I was coming out here and getting ripe shishitos almost every day, and I mean, there's a bunch on here, but again, it's not cranking like it was before the heat really kicked up. The cucumbers are pretty reliable in the triple-digit temperatures, as long as you keep them well watered. This is also very, very shady. See, there's a massive oak tree up here. I'm actually gonna try to get the cucumbers to climb into the oak tree this year, and it looks like I am successful so far. I think that would be really neat if I had to get on a ladder, pick cucumbers. The cool assassin bug up there. Anyway, so these cucumbers are all in pretty large fabric pots. The tan and white fabric pots tend to do a lot better. Don't have to water them as often. They're also in deep shade. These are companion planted with dill and leeks, because that's how I like my dill pickles. I like them with leek greens. But yeah, you can see every pot has 2 or 3 leeks, a bunch of dill, and then each pot has 1 cucumber. I thought it would be good to give these cucumbers a lot of space. I probably could have put 2 or 3 per pot, but I really want to see them, like I said, climb into this oak tree here. So Oh, there's a little bee there on the cucumber flower. Nice. Big fat cucumber there that's about to get pickled today. I'm doing all vinegar pickling at this point in the season because it's just too hot for lacto fermentation. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cucumbers, so. Little volunteer tomato next to the trash can, and some chard in this fabric pot with some dill. But yeah, let's go look at the real garden. Oh, look, it's a farm dog. Oh, the other reason I don't film garden videos on a regular basis is because it's just so messy. It's just me. I maintain all of this by myself, and I have a fruit orchard about a mile away. And there's just not enough time. I guess I'm making excuses, but between the heat and the lack of time, I just don't get out here to do as much cleaning as I should. You know, I come out here and do the bare minimum, water some things, harvest some things, but I really don't have a ton of time to come out here and clean stuff up. I had this was a beautiful bell pepper patch and tomato patch earlier this spring. All the tomatoes ended up getting weird diseases and died. The bell peppers did great. The shishito peppers did great. I had some pole beans in here, and then we got this crazy storm. I think it was when that dust cloud happened. It was actually like a day before the dust cloud. The winds were 50, 60 mile an hour, and all the pole beans came crashing down and collapsed. And now there's sweet potatoes just taking over the entire plot. I had a greenhouse here last winter, and there was a sweet potato that was in the compost pile that managed to like vine its way into the greenhouse and stay warm all winter. And I'm actually seeing sweet potato flowers now. And there's also a ton of weeds in here, but sweet potatoes tend to be fairly competitive with weeds. So maybe I'll get a little bit closer and see if I can show y'all some of the sweet potato vines. All these kind of heart-shaped leaves, those are all sweet potatoes. And we'll see how they do. Unfortunately, a lot of these vines aren't on the ground. They're kind of climbing over top of other plants, so I'm not really sure if they're going to make a ton of tubers or not. But the sweet potato vines are now covering an area that's probably 30 by 30. I mean, they're way out over here too. So, okay. I'm gonna try to keep this garden tour concise because, like I said, it's really hot and I'm getting destroyed by mosquitoes. There's some more bell peppers hanging out. This is a cool little lemon tree. I think we talked about that in the citrus update last week. I got a bunch of loquat trees in here. But yeah, let's look at the real stuff. This is a nice bell pepper plant. This is a purple bell pepper. Start to see the hue coming on there. This is one of my tangerine trees I talked about the other day. It's finally getting reestablished into its new pot there. Looks like I will get quite a few lemons this fall. Pretty excited about that. I didn't realize these tiny little bush lemons in the pots were capable of cranking out this many fruits on one little plant, but I'll take it. Nothing better than fresh, homegrown, organic citrus in the middle of a pandemic. Beautiful bell pepper here I overwintered from last year. Look at my sunchokes, y'all. I got sunchokes taller than me all over the garden. Sunchokes aren't really a good survival crop in my opinion because they don't really produce calories, but they grow like a weed and they're full of vitamins and minerals, so definitely something to add to your plate. I planted Jaws corn in here 2 weeks ago, and I was really excited because I've never had enough free space to grow corn, and this year I do. And the Jaws corn is supposed to get 13 inches long, and I planted it, and then I saw all these reviews online, and like everybody who planted it said their corn never germinated, and they were complaining to the company about it. And I was a little bit nervous and wondering what to do, and I came out and every single one I had planted came up. And then about a week later, half of them got eaten by rabbits or rats or squirrels or something. They didn't even eat them all. You can see how they just rip up the corn plant out of the ground and then leave it laying there. Yeah, I mean, this entire huge raised bed area and this hugelkultur was all corn. And now you can see there's a handful of corn plants left. I don't know if it's enough to get pollination or not. That's the problem with growing corn as a homeowner. You need a minimum number of plants all in a fairly close area forming a block to really get good wind pollination. And that's why I stuck a couple extras in pots around the edges just to kind of increase the number of plants for pollination purposes. But I came out here after the Jaws corn got eaten and seeded some other corn next to it, but the dates aren't going to match up now because the Jaws corn is 2 weeks old and the new corn hasn't germinated yet. So the idea that one will pollinate the other is kind of a, I don't know, shot in the dark, Hail Mary at this point. But oh, look at all these wild tomatoes over here, y'all. These are all wild tomatoes from the compost pile. I got some Malabar spinach. There's more bell peppers over there. Comfrey, the comfrey's massive now. Asparagus and dill. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. This is now just cover cropped. This was tomatoes earlier in the spring, but I planted the tomatoes into some clover. I'd cover cropped this winter, and the clover didn't die because we had a cool spring, and now the clover's all flowering and looking beautiful, and tomatoes have kind of disappeared, but that's all right. I don't mess with tomatoes too much anymore. Tomatoes are kind of the Lamborghini of garden crops in my opinion. It's a ton of work and not a whole lot of calories. But yeah, I mean, here's more wild tomatoes. Just stuff that comes up from the compost pile or stuff from seed out here. And it's funny because the ones I don't plant always end up looking way healthier than the ones I do plant. But that's just how natural selection works. So I really need to do something with this box today or tomorrow. This has been fallow for a month, which is very unlike me. I try not to leave parts of the garden fallow like that, because when you leave ground fallow, if it's not cover cropped and not heavily mulched, it's just going to be weeds. So you got to always have something growing. These are pole beans that probably aren't going to produce for a while because it's too hot. Oh wow, that's a surprise cucumber. Just kind of sitting on the ground there. Glad I found that before it rotted. This one's also on the ground and looks like part of it's rotted. But one of these collapsed in a big windstorm the other day. These cucumbers and pole beans are 8 feet tall and they're just in 5-gallon buckets, which is clearly too much weight for a 5-gallon bucket to have to counter, but I propped them back up and seem to be doing all right. These are more pole beans that are about to collapse. I had a really cool crop of edamame back here, and every bit of it got eaten by what I can only imagine is like deer or something, because the tops of every plant are chewed off and they're 2 feet tall. Yes, I did actually see a deer in the park the other morning. I think a lot of people who live in, you know, fairly urban settings think that they don't have deer, but I saw one at 4:30 in the morning the other day, just a little one, but it wouldn't surprise me if a deer had hopped the fence and chewed all them soybeans up, because I can't imagine what else ate the tops off a 2 foot tall soybean. Some of them were 3 feet tall. I don't think that's squirrels. But anyway, the soybean crop was an absolute utter failure, which is a shame because those edamame seeds were very expensive. And I was hoping to get some edamame for protein since I'm not really going to the grocery store right now. But yeah, the edamame was a complete failure. I don't know if we can see some of the edamame from this side too. We were looking at it from the opposite side, but wow, it's pretty scary to walk back here. Weeds, you know, not really weeds, plants, edible plants taller than me, and probably snakes and everything back here, but I need snakes because I got some rodent issues. Oh wow, look at this squash down here. Yeah, that's the other thing about having a garden that's just an absolute huge mess all the time. When you come out and look for stuff, it's always a surprise. It's foraging, you know, it's not gardening, it's foraging. There's some basil back there going to flower, another bell pepper. But yeah, you can see this is where the edamame was before it all got eaten. At least it put some nitrogen in the soil, but the mint is just sucking up all that nitrogen. At least this loquat tree is doing good. This thing has doubled in height in less than a year. This asparagus looks pretty good, and with the sunchokes. Big sunflower. It's going to seed now. It's got leaf-footed bugs all over it. The sunchokes behind them are flowering. The okra, oh wow, the okra pods are way overdue for harvesting. Those have probably gone to seed at this point. That's not good. I need to get out here and pick some okra today. Another little shishito pepper plant. This is a really cool purple bell pepper I've had for like 2 years now. I chopped down all the clover and stuff that was over here recently. This was all cover cropped all winter. Now they're starting to get some like grass creeping back in here, but it's doing all right. Hey, what's up, man? How are you? All right, well, I'm